Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jim O'Callahan, President and CEO of the South County EDC. We are pleased to have Mayor Todd Gloria from the City of San Diego join us today for our third installment of the
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Patricia. We are, we obviously strive to bring everybody back together and do our elected officials series in person. But for the time being, this is a great way to help make sure we can keep connecting with our electeds and help share, our insight, get some insight from them on what's going on and how things are rapidly changing. Through the series that we've had so far, we've had some great discussions about water, schools. In the coming weeks, we'll have some good discussions about other cities in our service area as well. And we look forward to those discussions. So today, I do apologize that Councilmember Moreno was not able to join us. She had a last-minute conflict, but we are definitely thrilled that Mayor Todd Gloria is able to be here with us and will be here for a good period of time. So as we go through the session, if you want to add any questions into the comment section, I'll be glad to share those. As soon as the mayor is done with his presentation, we can take some questions as well. If you want to raise your hand, we can call on you and ask those. We also have some questions that have been supplied to us already. So without further ado, I am going to welcome the man of the hour, or time period anyway. And I just lost, here we go. Sorry about that. So Mayor Todd Gloria, as a third generation San Diegan of Filipino, Dutch, Puerto Rican, and Native American descent, Mayor Gloria's lifelong career in public service has inspired by a lesson from his parents, a hotel maid and a gardener. Taught him at a young age, if you care about something, then you should leave it better than you found it. That lesson continues to motivate Mayor Gloria to improve San Diego every single day. Mayor Gloria has spent his entire professional life in service to the public, beginning his career at the County of San Diego's Health and Human Services Agency. He then went on to serve as District Director of United States Congressman Susan A. Davis, whom he credits as his mentor. In 2008, Mayor Gloria was elected to the San Diego City Council following Christine Keough and Tony Atkins in serving the 3rd District. In 2012, after serving his first term, Mayor Gloria's colleagues on the City Council elected him as their City Council President. In 2013, he assumed the reins of the city, beginning his time as interim mayor after the resignation of Bob Filner. During that time, Mayor Gloria is widely credited with restoring public's trust in city government. In 2016, Mayor Gloria was elected to the California State Assembly to represent the 78th Assembly District. He immediately rose to a leadership position in the Assembly, serving first as Assistant Majority Whip and eventually Majority Whip. During his time in the Assembly, Mayor Gloria passed legislation on many of the major issues San Diego is working to address, including building more affordable housing, fighting gun violence, combating climate change, and providing resources for those experiencing homelessness. As the 37th mayor of San Diego, Mayor Gloria is committed to making San Diego a city of opportunity that invests in every neighborhood and every San Diegan. Welcome, Mayor Gloria, and the floor is yours.
And thank you. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks for this opportunity. While I prefer in person, it's just good to see friends and connect and hopefully hear a bit what's on your mind. I want to be relatively brief because you can look at my Twitter feed to see what I've been up to and get a general sense of what my mind is focused on. I'm definitely interested in hearing what you all are seeing, feeling, experiencing. As I think I was sharing with my friend David Wick the other day, it is hard to be an elected representative when you're so removed from people currently, and so opportunities like this are really invaluable. And it's just good to see some old friends. I haven't seen Angelica or Elizabeth or Brian in quite some time. So it's good to see you guys, all of you, frankly, in person. I will just say on my 441st day as mayor of this city, who's counting, this guy, just a pro tip, I wouldn't do this in a pandemic. It's not super enjoyable, but this is temporary, right? We're gonna get past this, and we're gonna be able to focus on the reasons why I ran for mayor, specifically, as Jim was mentioning, issues of housing and homelessness, infrastructure, opportunity, climate action, etc. to that end, I mean, obviously you all lived through the pandemic, so you know what we're up to in terms of masking, health mandates, et cetera. Probably no ground to break there other than to simply say thank you for those of you who've done all that's been asked of you to help us get into a position where we're making progress. Little pro tip, because this thing has attacked every part of our lives, one area I like to draw attention to is the impacts of the pandemic on our homeless crisis. Because interestingly, despite all that is going on with our health and the health of our economy, it's homelessness that people talk to me the most about. And I will say that social distancing for you and I might mean that we stand further apart when we're buying a cup of coffee at Starbucks or something. But for our homeless population, that has meant that literally hundreds of our shelter beds have not been available to us. Because folks have gotten vaccinated, because folks have followed a public health order, I will tell you on Monday, we will finally get all of our shelter beds back into circulation. That's the opportunity for literally hundreds of people to get off of our streets. That is a direct result of our collective sacrifice. I'm deeply grateful. And I want to just connect again these two issues of the pandemic that's consumed a lot of our attention, homelessness that people talk to me about more than anything else, and really saying that these are not isolated issues, they're very much connected issues. And so if you're taking action on the pandemic, you're helping me take action on homelessness, and I appreciate it. Beyond that, in terms of things I want to draw your attention to, we have tried to not miss the opportunity of those 441 days to do stuff. Yes, we have to address the pandemic. Yes, it's key to getting our schools reopened, our economy going again, people employed, et cetera. But you still pay me to be mayor, and I still have work to do. And I will tell you that we've been able to make some progress in a couple of key areas I want to draw the attention of South County EDC to. I think probably importantly, I recognize that South County often feels as though the city of San Diego forgets that we are a South County city, that large expanses of San Ysidro and Otay Mesa and those wonderful South San Diego communities are very much a part of our city. I do my very best to not forget that. And I think some of the ways we're showing that is through initiatives like our Parks Master Plan, as well as our Build Better SD plan. What is central to those documents, which are basically the Parks Master Plan, that's pretty self-evident. We call it Parks for All of Us, or Build Better SD, our infrastructure master plan, if you will. They are, as they are stated, plans for how we're going to execute our plans for our parks and infrastructure going forward. What's different is that we are making the effort. In the case of the Parks Master Plan, it's already been adopted. In the case of the infrastructure plan, it's been introduced and will be voted on later this year, to create a citywide pot for the funds that we expend on parks and on infrastructure. Why is that meaningful to communities that have often been overlooked, have been ignored, or in some cases largely forgotten? When those dollars are segregated, basically it's sort of the notion that, we supposedly live our lives in one neighborhood. And I just disagree with that. You may live in San Ysidro, you may work in Otay Mesa, your kids may go to school in Mission Valley, whatever the case may be. I think we have a collective interest in the quality of our parks in all of our neighborhoods, the quality of our infrastructure in all those neighborhoods. What we have done is eliminate the segregated pots of funds, create a citywide pot, and then allow the best projects that are actually able to be implemented. I'm really tired of spending a lot of money on design and study. I really want to start building stuff, right? Because the condition of our roads are terrible. So many of our parks are inadequate. And, literally having, in the case of infrastructure, over $200 million sitting in bank accounts, but not being used in the city, that's ridiculous. And when next time you're accessing a neighborhood library and it's inadequate, or the road is terrible, and you think, well, they must not have enough resources. Well, let me tell you, we don't have enough resources. But when you overlay the fact that we have, artificially constrained our ability to make the most of the limited dollars that we have, that's why that has to change. The council agreed with me on parks. I'm hopeful they'll agree with me on infrastructure. And then when you look at a community like Otay Mesa, where there's so much vitality, so much naturally affordable housing product coming online, jobs being created, economic vitality, those I think will compete well against other projects across the city, rather than just sort of starving and really nothing getting done. So I would appreciate South County EDC's partnership and support in implementation of the Parks Master Plan, as well as the adoption of Build Better SD. I think that will accrue to the benefit of really every neighborhood, but I think particularly for communities that have long, again, been disassociated from the city as itself, or may not seen as itself as being connected, seen, heard, understood. I'm trying to change that, and I think these policy initiatives reflect that. Beyond that, maybe two more quick things. Many of you know, in addition to being the mayor, I'm the vice chair of SANDAG. I want you to hear very clearly from me that we are animated, activated. I'm going to DC in a couple of days to push for Otay Mesa East. It is the stated top priority of Sandag for this calendar year. That trip to DC is in concert with the Chamber of Commerce, but Sandag's team will be, knocking on doors to get the cash, to get the staffing assignments, etc. I'm optimistic. Some of you were with us last week for the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor of Baja were here, as well as the U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, to really commit ourselves binationally to getting this project done by 2024. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of excitement. I thank you all for being a part of why this project has been the little engine that could. And I just wanted to say that I'm, again, very optimistic about what will come. And I will do everything I can as mayor. And the opportunity that being the mayor of San Diego gets you in terms of getting an audience with the Secretary of Homeland Security or the Commissioner of CBP to get attention paid to this, as well as my role as Vice Chair of Sandag and making sure our limited local resources, whether it be through Transnet and other stuff, are focused on actually getting this project done. I think it's one of the most meaningful things we can do for economic development, for environmental justice, for equity. And so again, appreciate your partnership in that. The last thing I would just say is homelessness. As I already mentioned, it's a significant issue. The progress on the pandemic is helpful, but I want you to hear from me what the strategy is, because probably a lot of you are like, it's getting worse. And while we don't have the data necessarily yet to suggest that it is the case, I think any sensible person would say that it is. I was up early, as I mentioned to Jim a moment ago, with 1,400 other San Diegans this morning counting our homeless. This is required by Congress. We have to supply that data on a biannual basis in order to get federal funding for homeless outreach, shelter, and housing. Our commitment is this: listen, we're going to be very compassionate in how we do this work, but there will be rules and there'll be systems and beds available. So what does that mean? Well, we have citywide homeless outreach now that is not just law enforcement. San Diego Police Department does an excellent job through the neighborhood policing division to do a lot of homeless outreach, but we also have a very extensive contract with PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, to do citywide homeless outreach that is non-law enforcement based. Combined, it's a lot of opportunities to make daily connections with people who call the streets their home, in an effort to build the trust, the rapport, and the opportunity to get them to say yes to housing. Once that outreach is successful, then they have to go into shelters. Shelters are necessary places where we can correctly identify the individual, understand their housing needs, their housing readiness or lack thereof, and then start pointing them in the direction to permanent housing solutions. I'm proud to tell you that despite the pandemic, despite social distancing, and despite great resignation, which has impacted our ability to staff our homeless shelters, last year we grew our shelter capacity in the city of San Diego by 21%. I'm confident that we can do even better than that in the year ahead. More shelter beds means fewer people on our streets and more people on their way towards self-sufficiency. So we'll continue to work to expand shelter beds. You've seen that with the sprung tents, with the conversion of Pier 1 on Sports Arena Boulevard that, believe it or not, the city owned it. So it's not a Pier 1 anymore. It's now a homeless shelter for 44 people. That's a good thing. We'll continue to be innovative, find any place possible. Shout out to our county partners, particularly Nathan Fletcher and Nora Vargas, who have said yes to basically everything I've asked of them. And that's why I think we're able to get more of these shelters stood up. And the last bit is housing, right? Because housing solves homelessness. Housing plus services solves homelessness. We built about 130 units of permanent supportive housing last year. We have about 1,000 units in the pipeline as we speak. We are getting additional dollars from the state to do more hotel acquisitions, conversions, et cetera. Again, I want you to hear the comprehensive idea is robust street outreach, daily interactions, get folks to get to yes, get them into shelters, make sure that there's no situation where someone raises their hand and we say there's not a shelter bed available. I will tell you that most days we do have beds available. It'll be a challenge now that the new beds are coming back online. But at one point prior to Omicron, we were at nearly 96% occupancy. That's fantastic. That means that our dollars being spent on these beds are not going to waste because they're vacant. They're going to be used by people who hopefully will avail themselves of the opportunity to make that next rung of permanent supportive housing and get off the streets for good. So stay tuned on all these fronts. I appreciate the chance to update you on what we've been working on over the last year or so. I appreciate the opportunity to do this job for the next 3. I'm hoping for the next 7. And I will certainly not forget the fact that San Diego is proud to be a South County city. And we'll continue to be strong partners with our friends in Imperial Beach and Coronado, National City, Chula Vista, to make sure that we're working as a cohesive region for the benefit of the people and the businesses in South County. So, Jim, that's my update. I'm happy to answer questions on any subject that anyone's got on their minds.
All right, Angelica's got her hand up first, so I will.
Of course she does.
Hi, Mayor. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, my friend.
While you were counting homeless people this morning, Were there a lot of children that you could see, or what's the situation there?
I did not see, I personally did not come across any. We started our morning in downtown, and then I did most of my enumerating in Ocean Beach. There were some younger people, but none of them actually were children, and none are even transition age youth, which is about to age 24 or so. What we are though hearing is that the growth is in largely seniors and in a fair amount of young people or transition age youth. So not children, but people who age out of foster care, struggle with housing and affordability. We have expanded our transition age youth shelter in downtown San Diego. We need to do more of that. I would ask for folks' partnership and help in identifying locations, properties where we can do that. We are, again, being very innovative and finding whatever we can to yield it into shelter beds. And I will tell you that when you hear that notion that folks decline services, it is true. That does happen. That's often because people are deep in addiction, serious mental illness, whatnot. But it is true also that some of them have preferences. Now, I recognize that there's probably a line of thought that says beggars can't be choosers. But the fact is that sometimes I could understand why an 18-year-old may not want to go into a shelter environment with several hundred adults that they don't know. I get that. So creating more diversity within our offerings, whether it be for couples, for folks with more acute needs like mental health, women, seniors, we need to, as we grow that shelter capacity, again, diversify the portfolio, if you will. And because of that growing number of transition age youth and seniors, I think that's an area where you'll see some more focus from us as we have the opportunity, the resources and the staffing to expand our portfolio.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'm waiting for some other questions, some that had already come in, where, you had touched on a little bit about the OTI 2, and, we were together at the groundbreaking for the new terminal at the airport, and some of the other great investments that are coming, increased transit. How can the business community and the community at large ensure that we maximize all of this tremendous investment that's going on in infrastructure here in San Diego?
A couple ways. I mean, first off, it's how we choose to build this stuff, right? And whether or not we're doing it with contracting vehicles that allow us to get maximum local benefit, things of local hire, career pathways, things of that nature. Increasingly, we're seeing that at the airport, the water authority, the city of San Diego, and elsewhere. I think that's a value add. If you're doing a pure water project, which is over $1 billion, the biggest in our city's history, to really say, let's make sure that we are trying to, because that project's going to take 20-something years to actually construct. Let's see if we can get a career out of it for some of our folks, right? So I think that's one way to make more of it. Jim, you mentioned some mobility options. I think one of the ways to get more out of those assets is to make sure we're zoning our properties around these infrastructure enhancements to yield the most housing and businesses that's appropriate. And so you're going to see that as with the recent opening of the Midcoast Trolley extension from Old Town up to the UTC Mall. We have to update the community plans for Claremont and for University City. My hope is that we can enact plans that are robust, forward-looking, and really make the full use of that multi-billion-dollar public investment. I think that's another way to do it. So whether it's good jobs, quality housing to make sure that those mobility options are serving more people, those are things that come to mind. There may be other things that are in your mind. Be interested to know. But I actually am really excited by the number of big projects that are moving forward. You mentioned Terminal 1 at the airport. Thank God, place is Thunderdome. No one likes going there. Everyone loves Southwest, but no one likes going to that circular terminal. That is soon will be in the dustbin. The sports arena is a possibility relatively soon. Snapdragon Stadium, which will come online later this fall. Pure water, again, biggest in the city's history. 50% of our drinking water by 2035. There's some big stuff, and the potential for more, right? Convention center expansion, tailgate park. I mean, there's some really big projects that are coming online that really have the opportunity to leverage more positive benefit. And I'd welcome your feedback on where more of those opportunities may be.
Jim, I'd like to thank the mayor for his leadership on the CIP Capital Improvement Project, Olivia Road. The mayor's office and his staff, as well as council member Vivian Moreno, have been instrumental in pushing this project forward and helping us with the Army Corps of Engineers to put it at the top of their list so those permits would be issued, which this is a big game changer for Otay Mesa. As everyone knows who has any involvement in Otay Mesa, this Lamidia Road, Airway Road, has been a disaster. And I really appreciate the mayor's leadership in moving this project forward, that we should hopefully break ground in building 6 lanes all the way from 905 down to the border, where 3,500 trucks pass each day, billions of dollars of commerce and jobs for the region. Will break ground before the end of the year. So Mayor, thank you for your leadership in this this project that's been a long time in the waiting. So thank you.
Yeah. You've been involved in it every step of the way, David. I appreciate your help in helping us to bird dog and advocate, and we'll do more. Tony, I see your hands raised.
Thank you, Mayor Gloria, and thank you for the update on our unsheltered population. You might know that Goodwill is right on the corner of Sports Arena, where we had the very large encampment for many, many months. And I'm wondering how we're going to move forward and separate, criminalizing homelessness from the criminal activity. Many of the merchants in our area have, really been struggling with theft and a lot of other criminal activity that has come out of that encampment. And working very closely with the police department on a continual basis, they feel very much that their hands are tied. So I'm wondering what that bridge is, what that continuity can be around helping people to get sheltered, to really work with the unsheltered, but also, have law enforcement be able to control the activity that happens in some of these areas.
Yeah, Tony, that's a great question, and thank you for asking. And in some ways, I tried to answer that in a more of a headline fashion earlier in my comments, with saying that yes, we want to lead with compassion, but there have to be consequences, right, for people's personal behavior. What has happened on Sports Arena Boulevard over the last year or so is really a function of the pandemic, in my opinion. Whether it's the shelter beds that have gone unused, to the inability to staff some of the limited functions that we still have, coupled with the fact that, you can't book a lot of offenses into jail currently. If you can, there's zero bail, so it's likely that they get back onto the streets extremely quickly, even if they should be held for public safety reasons. And so there's I would disagree strongly when some may say that law enforcement's hands are tied. I don't think that's the case. I think it's the circumstances we find ourselves in. And as the restrictions of the pandemic are lifted, whether that's the full capacity in our shelters, the staffing issues, the ability to resume booking for more offenses into jail, as well as the ability to hold people on bail, I think some of that will come back to a more familiar milieu, if you will, right? It's more apples and apples, right? There's been references to the explosion in the numbers that are on the streets, and I believe it's true, but it's not necessarily a function of policy. It's more a function of what we've been dealing with in the pandemic. So set that aside. With regard to what we do in places like Sports Arena, and let me just say very clearly, we have similar circumstances as what you see on Sports Arena on National Avenue in Logan Heights and Barrio Logan, and along the San Diego River. I mean, there are some fairly serious stuff. Sports Arena just happens to be the newest one, and in some ways, hopefully easier to manage because you don't have a history of presence there that may sometimes facilitate the continued presence. So what have we done? I think what you've seen us do over the last month or so on Sports Arena will be instructive for what we'll be doing going forward. So now that we've had more resources available to us, you start to see, again, a compassionate approach. So because from your perch there at the end of the block, you've seen every one of our city's outreach efforts going out and making contact, in repeated contact, for over a month before you saw any level of aggressive cleaning up happening. So, making multiple contacts. It's how we know there's 183 people who are living out there about a month ago, how we know there were 90 some odd tents that are out there, how we know that only 7 of them initially accepted assistance when offered. And then once you've gone that pass through, then starting to do the cleanups. And it starts a little bit gentle from the standpoint of, hey, bring your stuff out, again, building trust, building rapport, and then asking folks to move their stuff. You may have noticed recently we've established permanent signage on that street informing people that we'll be coming by twice a week to make this area clean. And that's a commitment. It's a permanent sign. It's not a paper sign. It is on a fixed signage that will be there permanently. And that what you've seen is a commitment to go back there over and over again. The first cleanup, there was I think an article on the front page of the paper, community upset, mayor did not get job done. Well, we never said it was going to be one day. By the way, Tony, we have removed over 15 tons of garbage from that one stretch of Sports Arena Boulevard. 15 tons of garbage on 4 collection days. Insane. So after about a month of straight outreach, after a couple of weeks of regular cleanups, now you see progressive enforcement. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to explain to the general public what this is, because I need you, if you agree with this, to help me explain to other people what this means. This isn't about criminalizing homelessness, but it is about trying to get folks to make the choice that we want them to make, which is to accept services and get into housing. So no one is arrested simply for being homeless. What we do is offer people assistance. And if they are unwilling to accept assistance and assistance is available, there can be an enforcement action. What is often more likely the case is that we ask someone to move and then they refuse to do that. That means that they are occupying the sidewalk. That is not legal. They should follow the instructions of law enforcement. If they refuse to do that, we will do an administrative citation, a ticket, a misdemeanor, and then and that can land after 4 attempts at arrest. This is our last resort. It is not our first option. And so those multiple bites of the apple, we're not trying to be punitive. We're not trying to be mean, but we are trying to make sure that we're doing that balance between people who are very sick and vulnerable, very sympathetic property owners and businesses and customers. And then, Tony, you brought up a point of this that is important. There is a criminal element that sometimes exists in this space. And a part of that month-long outreach that we did on Sports Arena Boulevard gave the city constructive notice of conditions on that street that we could not abide. When you saw the level of hazardous materials, the level of drug use, the level of what people were complaining about. We had complaints of symptoms of illness. Even residents along that street saying that they did not feel safe, that they felt like they're fearful for their physical safety, fear of sexual assault. We had all of that information given to us, so we had to take the actions that you're seeing now. I believe that in the next number of weeks, we will get Sports Arena Boulevard back to some level of normalcy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this effort, we identified nearly 100 tents. By the count of our police department, I think as of yesterday, it was something closer to 30 tents. This consistent contact twice a week, every week until it's done, I think we'll get something back to more normal on Sports Arena Boulevard. And then we'll follow that very robust, very scripted approach on National Avenue, on Commercial, on the San Diego, and do it like that. And then we'll just have to be persistent. You will rightly ask, well, Mayor, how do we know it'll stay this way? Well, we just have to be persistent. And I would, again, ask for your partnership and explain to people how we do it, that it is compassionate, that our goal is not to incarcerate, but there does have to be consequences for people who are drug dealing, for people who are battering under other individuals, for people who are breaking the law. Being homeless is not a get out of jail free card. And then I'd ask for your help in supporting for the housing and the shelters that actually end this problem, as well as this could be edgy, but I would welcome EDC's support in this, and in asking for conservatorship reform at the state of California level. We have a number of people that we offer services to that decline services who are clearly vulnerable, sick, and at risk, but the law doesn't currently allow us to do much for them. If they say, no, we can't do much, that's not acceptable. These are very ill people who we as a society are currently allowing to live on the street. Historically, we had them in institutions. Recently, we've had them incarcerated. Now we just leave them on the sidewalk. I can't accept that. And I hope that you'll join me in saying that's not acceptable and demand that the state change laws to give us more tools to address these very sick people who are not capable of caring for themselves.
And I thank you very much for that explanation. I think the frustration with merchants in this area particularly, and we had a meeting with the city council and the police, and we brought them all together in our parking lot because we couldn't go indoors at the time. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it. I think, it just stretched out for such a long period of time, and we kept seeing the drug use, the criminal activity. I myself driving home, through that street, saw guns and the transactions of sale of drugs, and it was just very apparent, and it seemed like nothing was being done. So to see some movement and to see it getting cleaned up is very exciting for us, but also at the same time, the humanity part of it is important for us as an institution that helps people that are homeless. And we want to be part of the solution. I think that was the message that we sent out when we set up the original meeting with the city council person from this area and the police, because we can get people into jobs and we can get them their lives to be self-sufficient if they'll get the mental health and they'll get off the drugs and the alcohol and the other things that are the barriers, big barriers to employment. So we want to be part of that solution, Mayor, and I thank you for the extra time that you took to explain it today, and it will be helpful in sharing your message.
Tony, I so appreciate that. And I'm so sorry that you've had to experience that for the last year. I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for the folks that have to live on Sports Arena, and we'll continue to be persistent. I really need everyone's partnership on this. This is, again, the biggest issue. Folks are very upset. And what I worry about is their anger will convert to solutions that aren't solutions, right? And we'll start doing dumb stuff again, like buying a bankrupted indoor skydiving facility for a homeless shelter that doesn't house anybody. I mean, it's that kind of goof foolishness that we don't want to repeat, right? And hear from me very clearly. You should not have to be worried about walking to your car, leaving or going to and from work. You shouldn't see open drug dealing or guns in your community. That's not acceptable. And again, I appreciate everyone who's created a situation where we can bring down infection rates, reduce hospitalizations so that we have all of the tools available. This is a difficult problem on the best day. To do it on a day when half your tools are taken away from you because of the pandemic, it's so frustrating, but we're making progress, and you have my commitment. Every day I sit at this desk to find some way to move forward on this.
Appreciate that.
I want to thank you. I know you're short on time, not to jump in, Tony. I apologize. I do want to give you an opportunity if you want to share any final thoughts, because I know you have to run pretty quickly. So.
Jim, I ran my mouth plenty. But what I should do is just say, Steve Hill from my team is with me. You see him on the screen. Steve is my business and economics and recovery staff member. Use him as much as you like. Steve and I have worked together for many years. Trust this man completely. He knows everything about City Hall. So if you don't know him already, please get to know him and know that our office is here to help. Council member offices are here. Vivian's been a great partner in South County, but we're also here to help in any way that we can. And I look forward to coming back and joining with you all in future opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mayor Gloria, and wish you well with the rest of your day. So
awesome. Thanks, guys. Be well, okay?
I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I do apologize that we will not have Councilmember Moreno with us. She had a last-minute conflict that came up, but I do want to thank the mayor for his insights, and we have a number of questions we're going to follow up with him, and we'll get those responses out to those of you who are part of this, and we'll share that. But again, thank you, and we look forward to continuing these discussions, hopefully soon in person. Because we know that it's vital to have that interaction. But in the interim, we were able to at least get some folks together to meet with the mayor virtually at this point. So I wish you all a good day, and I look forward to connecting as we continue this series. Thank you all.